Welcome everybody to Northampton Neighbors Speaker Series. We have almost 1,000 members now. Northampton Neighbors' goal is to help all of us as we age in place with dignity. If you're not a member, please join us. There's no fees included. Anyone can join. Nina is here for all of our tech needs. She's in the background and she'll jump in if Karen or I get stuck. Our speaker will talk for about 25 minutes, then we'll have questions. Please hold your questions until the end. And please put your questions in the chat box. There's a button at the bottom of the screen. You press on chat, put your question in and press enter. Nina's recording the talk and it'll be able to be viewed on YouTube and Open Media Cable in a couple of days. Nina advises us to use Speaker View. You can press the view button up in the upper right-hand corner, and press Speaker View. You can also press the CC at the bottom of the screen if you want to have closed caption and read along. I think we'll get started. Karen Foster has been the executive director of All Out Adventures since 2007. She, before that, was a 9th grade history teacher, a middle school-based program administrator, coastal kayaking and road cycling instructor for REI Outdoor School, among many other things. Karen has a BA in history and an MS in education administration. She's also, most importantly, the Ward 2 city councilor, which is my city councilor. So we really welcome Karen here, and I'm so looking forward to your talk. So take it away, Karen, please.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to come and talk about All Out Adventures and who we are and what we do. And you know, it's excuse me while I start a timer so I don't go on too long. It's something that I love. I've been with All Out Adventures since 2004, and I've been the executive director since 2007. And I recognize that I have what is, for me, the best job on the planet. I really, really love what I do, and any opportunity to come and invite people in to learn more and to see what's possible is something I really relish. So I'm really, really glad to be here. And just I'll back up a little bit with the who is All Out Adventures? I think many of you know and some don't, but I'll sort of start at the beginning. And then what I did is I put together a bunch of photos from our programs. And for those who don't know, All Out Adventures, we closed for about 6 weeks. From the middle of October, actually, we just reopened on Wednesday. So I was really working hard on this week, and it brought me so much joy to be collating photos and stories and thinking about our programs and what are the most important things to share with you all. So I'll show you a bunch of photos from our programs, take you through kind of each program that we run and what it looks like and how we modify it, talk about a couple of our special events and some ways to get involved, and then we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. So just the very basic, All Out Adventures is a nonprofit. We're based on Pleasant Street in Northampton, and we work statewide. So we run many, many programs in the Connecticut River Valley. We go out to the Berkshires, we go out to Central and Eastern Mass, and we're starting to expand into Rhode Island. So we run our programs, you know, kind of everywhere. Today, I'll highlight as much as I can opportunities for seniors, as well as local to the Northampton area opportunities as well. So the programs that we run programs year round. All of our outdoor recreation programs are accessible to people of all abilities. We have different funders, different program focuses, and I'll share those with you. But just the very basic cycling, kayaking, canoeing, stand-up paddleboarding, hiking, snowshoeing, ice skating, and cross-country skiing. There's something for everybody and every season. And this is just to kind of back up and give us the overview of what we do. I'm going to use my mouse here to highlight. So The Department of Conservation and Recreation's Universal Access Program. This is the division of the state park system that is focused on making the state parks accessible to people who have disabilities. So back in the 90s, when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed and there was a greater focus on access for people with disabilities, the state parks also improved access of, accessible fishing docks and accessible restrooms and walkways. But the director of the Universal Access Program, Tom McCarthy, he really got that just physical infrastructure improvements isn't enough to welcome people into the parks. And so the Universal Access Program was founded to support people who have disabilities in accessing the state park. So that's what the programs that we run. So, if you're a wheelchair user, I don't want to say you're not going to or not able to put your kayak on top of your car and drive to the beach and take it down and go into the lake, but it's a lot less likely you're going to access the state parks that way. So the Universal Access Program is designed to provide support for people with mobility impairments and other disabilities in accessing the state parks. We also run programs specifically for people who have brain injuries. That includes traumatic brain injuries, survivors of falls and car accidents, as well as acquired brain injuries. So we work with many, many stroke survivors or the survivors of illness that have led to brain injury. We have a federal grant to serve veterans, and that's what's brought us down into Rhode Island. We do quite a bit in Central Mass with that grant as well. And then our programs for seniors, actually, we used to have a grant for them. We don't have a grant anymore, but we love our programs so much that we keep them going. They're not funded by one of our other partners, but all of our other partners support these programs. And that's through contributions in our fundraising events that we make our programs for seniors happen. And I want to share this photo. This is actually just to set us in the kind of mindset of how we approach our programming and welcoming people into the outdoors. At our staff trainings, we often talk to our staff about, what if this were your mother coming to a program, or, your beloved cousin, or, your neighbor that you really care about? We're going to do kind of start to finish comfort and care to make sure that people have a really positive experience. So that means we offer people a drink of water. We have chairs so they can sit down while they're, putting snowshoes on. But it also means treating people with dignity and respect and being mindful of what may make them more comfortable. The people who come to our programs, they're the experts on their bodies, on their disability, and on what they need. But we know from our experience in outdoor recreation things that can help, and some things that could be uncomfortable or dangerous for people, and some things that could really promote safety. So I'm showing you this photo because this is our program director's mom and dad. In the front, this is her mom. This is her dad in the back. They're on a tandem recumbent trike. Her dad, he has Parkinson's, and he has a degenerative spinal condition. So he walks with a shuffle. He's got quite a bit of back pain, and he really needs some thought and care into how he participates. A few years ago, when they first came, our program director would talk to the staff and sort of talk through the setup and what her parents needed. This past fall, we registered our parents for a program, and they went, and our program leaders were there. And, until they saw the sign-up sheet, they didn't even know that our program director's parents were coming. And that's because that's how much trust we put in our staff and how much they care. And the quality of the programs is that our program director could trust that her parents would go to this program. Our program director was not there. And that her parents were well cared for and would have a good experience. And they did. They had a wonderful time. And just a note, as I'm showing you photos, there's a mix of photos that are pre-COVID, during COVID, as mask mandates are changing. So you'll see some photos where people are wearing masks, some where people aren't, but it's just timeline. So we follow current COVID protocols in all of our programs. And so as I think about our how we've gotten to this point where we can care for our participants and really have a lot of trust and confidence in our staff, we do seasonal staff trainings. They're really fun, like really fun. These are just a couple of photos. I could have spent hours just showing you photos of staff trainings, but we practice for everything. So right here, we're practicing how to transfer somebody from a wheelchair into a kayak. We have a canvas sling that we help use. You'll notice we've padded this person's legs so that the strap doesn't dig in. We are very mindful of how we interact with people. We're grabbing a life jacket, not the person. And we practice, and we spend an entire day each season practicing this stuff to make sure that when our participants come, we're ready for them. We practice, the canoe tipped over. How are we going to get somebody back in the middle of the lake? So again, this is a staff training. It's unusual that it happens at programs, but it does. We've had a couple. And so everybody's ready, and we practice this before every warm season. That's me. And here we're practicing. There's other more comfortable looking ways to get back into a kayak in deep water, but here we're practicing in case somebody's incapacitated. There's a way you can actually fill their kayak up, and it's called a scoop rescue. Scoop them back in, and off you go. So I just wanted to lay that groundwork that that the programs that we run come with a high degree of staff preparation and an awful lot of teamwork. I'll start with talking a little bit about our cycling. So there are some Northampton celebrities that you'll see in some of these photos, which I really love. This photo here is from the rail trail over in Hadley, and this photo is from Look Park. So you'll see we use what we call tandem recumbent trikes. They're called a tadpole style. They have two wheels in the front. There's one behind that you can't quite see. But what that means is that they have really good balance. They're stable, they're comfortable. There's these little bars right here. They're called assist arms that a person getting up and down from a trike can use, that almost like the arms of an easy chair to get up and down. Trikes are of different heights and different styles. They can accommodate. We can move the shifter and brake to one side. So if a stroke survivor has weakness on one side of their body, they can control a bike with the other side. I'm sure many of you will know this gentleman here. He had Parkinson's, and cycling is one of the best activities for Parkinson's. The tempo of cycling is similar to dance. It can override the tremor impulses in the brain, can actually have therapeutic effects, and it's also just really fun. So the tandem can really help with that because the pedals are going around together, and so the front rider is providing power and steering, braking, and shifting, but the rear rider is getting all of the exercise benefits of riding, and then a single trike back there. So there's really something that can accommodate everybody. What I love about this photo, it just brings me so much joy, is this is just an extended family out for a bike ride. And so we've got a hand cycle, a recumbent trike, a wheelchair tandem that I'll show you. So it's multi-generational. We really focus on community and inclusion. And so our programs, about half of the people who come to our programs have disabilities, and the other half are their loved ones. We have friends come, spouses, adult children and their parents, hired PCAs. So it's very, very inclusive. And that's something that people tend to really appreciate about our programs, that it's not focused just on the person who has a disability or a mobility impairment. It's for an inclusive activity. Here, I just wanted to show our hand cycles. But the other thing I wanted to show is many of our programs are for people of all ages. And so here we have a young boy using a hand cycle, and here we have a gentleman who's probably my age using a hand cycle. And one of the most special things that happens at many of our programs is we'll have adults who are living with a disability, perhaps in the same program as a child or a teen. And there's just a natural multi-generational connection that happens, where younger people will see somebody who looks like them or has needs like theirs out at a program. And it's something that happens, and it happens very naturally, but it's a pretty cool thing. For many, depending on a disability, it can be relatively isolating, or you don't necessarily know other people with a similar disability. So there's often some really special connections that get made. And this I just wanted to show you because it gets to that point that, like, really anybody can ride a bike. Everybody can ride a bike. And this just happens to be two separate father-daughter combinations. They're two different bikes, but they're both on this one on the right, that yellow bike, it's actually a wheelchair attached to a bike. So this young woman was transferred from her personal wheelchair into this bike. The one on our left, this is actually, she's in her own wheelchair. This bike is on loan to us right now. We're currently raising the money. Her family's helping us raise the money to purchase our own, but she's able to stay in her own wheelchair. And this is a platform that we rolled up her wheelchair on and secured it. And so depending on the disability, for some people, it's a huge relief to get out of their chair and into something different. And for other people, their wheelchair is custom made and the padding is perfect for their bodies and they're comfortable and the transfer presents a barrier. So it's really important. We do this with cycling. We have a variety of different types of bikes and we try to address barriers to participation in every way that we can. And so even two different wheelchair users are going to find comfort and joy in two different ways of accessing cycling. And actually, as I'm talking about barriers, the one thing that I did not mention is we work hard to provide our programs either for free or for very low cost. And we offer scholarships to anyone that cost is a barrier to regardless. Our cycling program that you see here, one of them, the one that's run in partnership with the state, we ask people to pay $5 for that program. And there are people who can't, and we cover that. But we don't want finances to be a barrier to participation. And so that's just a guiding principle of ours to break down whatever barriers there are to participation as much as we can, as well as to be viable. We're going to jump seasons now because winter's coming. And I wanted to talk about, we have a senior snowshoeing program. Sometimes it's senior hiking, depending on the conditions. So in this photo, you'll see people have ice grippers on their boots. So it can be a real barrier for many people to think about walking outside in the winter because we don't want to slip on the ice. But these they're yak tracks of different styles. We provide them and it provides quite a bit of traction to help people get out, even if the trails are icy or there's not a lot of snow. And then down here, this is a beautiful blue sky day at the DAR out in Goshen. We're using snowshoes here. We provide these. We'll be providing senior snowshoeing programs on Wednesdays from January through March. And I'll give you our website address. Our program calendar isn't live on there yet, but you heard it here first. It'll be on Wednesdays. And we rotate between the DAR and Goshen, Mount Tom and Holyoke, and try to get back and forth and get people in different parts of the valley and different snow and weather conditions. And then there's different ways. We have our senior snowshoeing, senior hiking program, but then there's different ways that people can access hiking as well. And so this is a photo from one of our programs for people who have brain injuries. This is a couple, I adore them. And this wheelchair is an off-road hiking wheelchair. His hands are on levers here that actually push down and up. It uses a little bit stronger muscles in your arm than wheeling. So this is one style of off-road wheelchair that can help provide access and independence. And then over here, we have these really great off-road walkers. So here we're on the beach at the DAR out in Goshen, but they're good for dirt trails as well. So people who need extra stability have access to these kinds of walkers. And then hiking can take so many different forms. It could be a beautiful day where you're pausing and taking in the sunshine in community. And this is from a senior hiking program. And then over here on the right, this is one of my favorite things that's ever happened at one of our programs. We ran a hiking series for people who have visual impairments at Mount Tom. And these women came, and at our first program, we went through our whole hike. We went alongside Lake Bray, some fairly challenging terrain of roots and rocks. And we pointed all of that out, and the trees and all of the difficult terrain, everything you would need to know for our hike. And then we sat down at a picnic table after while they waited for the ride from PVTA and fired up the Coleman and made tea. And one of the women said to us, "Oh, there's picnic tables here." I said, "Well, yeah." And because I hadn't thought to describe the picnic tables, we were out hiking and I had described the whole hike. And she said, "Well, does that mean anybody can come here and have a picnic?" And I said, "Yes, this is your park. Anybody can come here and have a picnic." And this woman here in green, the next week she came back and she couldn't wait to tell us that she had come back to Mount Tom on her own with her brother and her brother's family to have a picnic over the weekend in between our hiking programs. And it was just this kind of incredible moment of what being in the outdoors means to different people. Or, you know, everybody's got a different reason for heading out there. And through this hiking series, she learned that the state parks are a place that she belongs, whether it's for a hike or for a picnic. And it just was so amazing that she learned that she can come back anytime she wants. And she did. The other thing that we use in the snow, I just love this photo so much. This is a mother and son. I met him. He's one of the first people I ever met as a program leader back in 2004. He was a small child. And I remember hiking with him at Wendell State Forest, and it was winter and there was like this cold stream, and he and his older brother took off their shoes and they splashed around in the stream. It was really remarkable. And as you can tell, he's now a grown man. And these kick sleds provide incredible mobility and access to the outdoors. They're actually used quite a bit in Scandinavia, just like as strollers or your grocery shopping. It's a way to have mobility across the snow. And for us, they really work for people with balance impairments or people who maybe can walk for a bit, but then need to be able to sit down and rest. And so, you know, we had a group of people, this group home came out from Dedham and took the kick sleds out, and it was just provided some extra balance and extra fun for this mother and son. He can walk some, then she can push him some, he can sit down and rest, and he can take a longer hike than if he didn't have access to that. Or you have an adult child and a parent doing the same thing, going out and taking the kick sleds. And again, mom can hike, but mom needs to be able to take a break. And so the kick sled provides that opportunity. And we dubbed this one the Sudbury Cedar, because one of our staff members who recently moved on, we miss her terribly, but her parents own Sudbury Cedar Fence Company out in Hudson, Mass, and donated money to purchase a kick sled. And so we purchased this one and dubbed it Cedar for Sudbury Cedar, or Cedar like take a seat kind of kick sled. So that's that fancy new kick sled. I wanted to share about ice skating. We don't have a senior specific ice skating program. Seniors are always welcome. But I just wanted to show briefly the different ways we can make ice skating accessible. So we have these walkers for people who are learning. When I learned how to ice skate, I used to grab the boards on the rink and kind of like pull myself around until I could skate without that. But this allows people to mix into public skate. And so it provides balance and support. But instead of clinging to the boards for dear life, it provides a balance opportunity and lets people just mix in. Here we have, these are sleds. They're on ice skate blades. People who are independent can hold these mini hockey sticks in their hand. They have a sharp pick on the bottom, and then you can propel yourself forward. People who are not independent can have somebody behind them push with handles. And there is nothing like the speed and the sensory of ice skating. So, you know, you can walk and have somebody push you in a wheelchair, but if you're ice skating, or if you have somebody on skates pushing you, you're going fast, and people giggle and they laugh and they cheer and they love it because you're going so much faster. It's really an incredible experience for people who can't reach that kind of sensation on their own. It can be really meaningful. And then that's me over there. But this gentleman, he's a brain injury survivor, and he used to play hockey, and he really wanted to skate again. And so we supported him, held his hands, were there in case he fell. And as his brain injury left him blind, but he knew where he was on the rink. And as we were skating around the ice, he knew when he hit the blue line and the red line, and he was just reliving it all. And he did one lap, and you know, he knew where he was, totally was reliving things. He did one lap and he said, I can't believe it, I just skated around the ice, and he was good. But you know, we have people at all different levels who can come out and enjoy that and know what that feels like. And I think it's time to go back to something warm. So I wanted to share a little bit about our canoeing programs. This is something to look forward to. Over here, you know, these women, one of them is a veteran. They have service dogs that come with them, but just, you know, out for a paddle. To hear, this person is passive. She's not able to paddle or sit upright independently, but we've built a seat that's got high back support, so that it kind of tips back just enough that she can lean back and be comfortable and get a ride around the lake. To somebody here who lost her her husband and they used to canoe together. And she was really looking to go out and canoe with somebody again. And our program director, Sue, who's in the back here, is a strong canoer. And so they were able to go out together. And so again, the programs hit all of these different levels. It's just simple modifications. Kayaking is one of the things that we do the most of, that people are really excited about. We have a senior kayaking series. It's typically on Wednesdays or Thursdays in Northampton. And I just wanted to show a little bit about the different ways we make it accessible. So here again, we have a seat for somebody who needs to be passive, who can lean back in the kayak and be paddled around. This guy, he's been coming kayaking since I started. So we've been kayaking together for 15 years now. He comes out every Wednesday and goes kayaking. He's actually holding a canoe paddle. Cognitively, a kayak paddle with 2 blades is a lot. But some people, if we give them a canoe paddle and they're just looking at 1 blade, can be really successful, but it's a great way for him to get out with his caregiver. And this gentleman is a veteran. The Leeds VA has a really strong program for addiction and PTSD survivors, people who are really in recovery. And so we work with a lot of veterans who are working through addiction and PTSD. And so just being outside can be, can really change their day or how they're approaching things. And so I just love this photo because you can tell that he's relaxing and not worried about other things in that moment. And again, this gentleman has a neurological condition that really impacts his balance, but we use wide stable kayaks and he can kayak independently. He's been coming with us for years, and it's a joy to see because he struggles to walk. But being in a kayak can really be a great equalizer for people. To somebody down here she's had a lot of fear and some challenges, but she comes out with her mom, mother-daughter kayaking. We talk about sometimes making the ordinary extraordinary. I go kayaking with my kids, but here mom has the confidence of support and a group and other people that can help her daughter, and they can come out kayaking together. This is our senior kayaking that we do on the Connecticut River in Northampton. The Connecticut River Greenway Park is behind the River Run condos off Damon Road. So we do senior kayaking there, and just wanted to show the scenery. We talk about independence quite a bit. So one thing we do, this individual has a spinal cord injury. She uses a wheelchair. We have a bench actually that goes over the kayak, and she can transfer from her wheelchair into the kayak on shore. And then the whole kayak can be pushed into the water. We take the wheels off, and then you would never know that she had a spinal cord injury. She joins our senior kayaking programs, doesn't need anything other than a hand with a transfer. We also have stand-up paddleboarding. We have an adaptive one with pontoons and a seat. And the other thing about paddleboarding is you can paddleboard in a seated position, you can paddleboard standing, you can paddleboard kneeling. And the really great thing about paddleboarding is if you fall off a paddleboard, it doesn't hurt. So it ends up being quite a bit of laughter. So it's a great chance for people to work on their balance and being out there. And it ends up being pretty fun experience. Usually once one person falls, everybody starts falling, and then it's really fun. I just wanted to touch briefly. So we, All Out Adventures, we sell and service recumbent trikes. It provides really critical operating support for our organization. So we have our recumbent trike shop is at 297 Pleasant Street. We're right next to Northampton Bicycle. He's one of my, I don't know, I love all of our trike customers, but he bought a trike this summer. He was part of a men's group that took long rides every Saturday. He has ALS and is dealing with the impacts of reduced mobility. And he came and bought a trike with an electric assist, and his buddies, because it was a Saturday, came with him. So he picked up his bike with an entourage. They're not even all shown here. There were like 15 guys that came and took their Saturday morning ride together when he picked up his trike. So it furthers our mission and provides really important operating support. And we want to make sure people know that trikes are available. Also, just wanted to introduce briefly our coldest fundraiser. It's called the Plunge for Adventure. Hillary Price, who does the hot chocolate run mugs, she designed a logo for us for our inaugural event 2 years ago. This was at the DAR State Forest. It was cold. We're planning to do that again this year toward the end of February. This would be our second plunge for adventure. And our other fundraiser that we're very well known for is called the Kayak-A-Thon. It's like a walkathon where we get sponsorships per mile paddled. We start in Sunderland and we go to Hatfield. Some people come all the way from Sunderland down, others meet us in Hatfield. Then we go down to Northampton. We have anywhere from 50 to 100 people out on the water, kayaks, canoes, paddle boards. That's our state rep, Lindsay Sabadosa, paddleboarded with us for the last one. And we're looking ahead to this year as we were on a 2-year break due to COVID, but we're looking ahead to September and, you know, hopefully we'll be back at it this year. We're really looking forward to it. I just want to make sure that you all know that you can get involved. You can join a program. We'll make sure you have our website. Our program calendar is there. There's a tab there that says contact us. That email goes directly to me. It doesn't go into some strange box, you know, never to be seen again. It comes right to me. So reach out to me anytime. We need volunteers. People can come to programs and sign people in, help us maintain our equipment, be greeters. There's all kinds of volunteer roles at our programs and in the back, kind of behind the scenes in the office. And then our greatest need as an organization, I put it out there anytime I have the chance, is we're working to grow our board of directors. So if you or people you know are interested in taking a larger role, that's just something we always have our antenna up for. And there is my contact information, just to make sure you all have it. But I know Northampton Neighbors has it, so feel free to reach out anytime to them to get in touch with me. And Sarah, that's what I had. I would invite questions, you know, clarifications, anything I can do to help explain what we're up to.
Okay, please, everybody, we almost have few enough people to be on one screen, but if you'll put your questions in chat, that will still be easier. And then we can try raising a hand after we're done with the questions. But I do want to do this small break. Thank you so much. That just astounds me. You thought of things that I've never even considered in adapting equipment and stuff. We all would clap for you, but we haven't perfected that on Zoom yet. Before we go to the questions, though, I got to make a fast appeal. I think All Out Adventures is a wonderful group and nonprofit and great, but so is Northampton Neighbors. And Northampton Neighbors doesn't have a fee to join, and none of our services have fees either. And as COVID is sort of kind of hitting a new phase, we're providing more services. So if you need rides or you need someone to call you or you want to join one of our groups, there's lots of stuff. There's many more things going on than during our severe COVID. Is this less severe? I'm not sure. But we also do fundraising. We don't charge anything for any of our services. And so donations are really wonderful. If you can donate, please do. There'll be a screenshot on the end of the talk saying where you can donate. Or you can go to northamptonneighbors.org and it's very clear, donate, and you can get it done. And we would appreciate it greatly. Let's see. Let's start the chat questions. And I'll try gallery view in case people raise a hand. Mark Carpel says, it's hard to think of an organization with more heart than AOA. Do you have both paid staff and volunteers? If so, what's the ratio?
That is a great question. We make sure that our programs are staffed with paid staff to have the ratios. And then as we talked about the training, you know, we all have CPR, first aid, kayak and paddleboard instructor certification. So we make sure that our staff, that we have staff at our programs with that training, and then volunteer supplement. So it depends a little bit on the program. One of our Friday cycling programs in Hadley that's in partnership with the state parks, we might have 6 or 7 paid staff there and 1 or 2 volunteers. Our senior snowshoeing program, we typically have 3 staff and then 1 to 2 volunteers. So volunteers really supplement. One thing is our staff run the big picture of the program and can't necessarily provide one-to-one support. So volunteers might tandem paddle in a kayak or canoe, or handle the registration to free our staff up for the big picture of the program. So it's not a set ratio, but we sort of put all the pieces together to make sure we have what we need to serve people well.
I have a couple of questions from Naomi. One is there a large national set of organizations that provide these kinds of activities as well? And are you connected to them at all, if there are?
There's sort of a hodgepodge. There's not necessarily a national organization. There was one. I had been on the steering committee of an organization called Greater Boston Access to Recreation that was pulling in Boston and New England regionally of different adaptive recreation organizations. One of the challenges is that all of us tend to be so flat out with the work we're doing. We were sort of struggling to pick our heads up for the regional organization. But that being said, there's a strong network. So, you know, when we have questions, there's other or need advice, there's other organizations that we know to call. And then there is regionally 5 or 6 organizations that get together about every other month to discuss risk management, where we look at scenarios that are coming up in programs, look at you know, we log every program that we run. We log if there was, you know, safety concern, an incident, anything like that. And we discuss those and adjust our practices and our policies for that. So that, you know, we have close relationships with other organizations, but not necessarily a big formal one.
Okay, thank you. Linda Desmond asks, what would your suggestion be for a baby step activity for someone who really hasn't been active for many years to prepare to join you guys?
Sure. All of our activities are actually, we're really careful to be able to introduce and integrate beginners to people who have done it quite a bit. They tend to be more beginner focused. So our senior snowshoeing program is a great jump in. Often what we'll do is a group of 8 to 10 people will set off together. And then, you know, maybe a half a mile in, we'll split, and some people will choose to go at a more relaxed pace for another mile, and other people will choose to pick up the pace and go for another 1.5 miles, 2 miles. You know, so everything is designed to be really welcoming and encouraging of people who are just starting out. And that's where our focus is. And then if we can meet the needs of people who are like, I want to go fast, we do that too. But our goal is very much integrating people who are, you know, making sure that people who are just starting out find their place.
Okay. And then Naomi writes, AOA is such a wonderful organization, and you, of course, are a remarkable director. So glad that Northampton Neighbors has you as a community partner. How did you get involved in this work? The question finally comes. How do you get involved in this work?
Yeah.
And I think you answered the second half of it already.
Okay. Yes. So as way back in the intro, I used to be a teacher. And at the time I was teaching in Pittsfield. I lived in Lee. And some of my favorite days of work were our staff development days. And the reason is because it started later and I had time then to ride my bike to work. You know, I would go out kayaking in the lakes of the Berkshires. I just loved being outside, and I loved teaching, but I didn't love the classroom. And I'm an introvert. And so kind of all day long with a classroom of I taught 9th grade history. I knew that wasn't the fit, but there were elements of that career that I loved. And so during school vacations, I was able to get some of the certifications. So I did a National Outdoor Leadership School class in at Mount Rainier National Park to learn some of the foundations of outdoor leadership. I got my kayak instructor certification, wilderness first responder, the multi-day certifications. So I used my school vacations to do that, and just had really been focused on having some kind of career in outdoor recreation. And back in 2004, as I was moving to this area, All Out Adventures was hiring for a program coordinator, and I applied. And I didn't get the job, but I was offered a job leading programs, and I just was beside myself. I was so happy. And so I started running programs. And then my good friend Sue Tracy, who's here, in 2006, she came on as program coordinator. And when our executive director, one of our founders, Elizabeth Dunaway, when she left as executive director, Sue and the board worked together to bring me on as executive director. So it's been kind of a little bit of a windy path, but since 2007, I haven't and wouldn't look back.
Well, you reached your goal. Jane Fleshman asked, Karen, as you spoke, I really got the feeling that you love puzzles that disabilities present to you in your work, rather than problems that are insurmountable. Oh, wait a minute, I lost my place, that are insurmountable issues. And the way you talk is such a great way of thinking about people with disabilities. Do you have any advice for those of us who are dealing with chronic diseases and other disabilities to think about getting started with AOA?
Yeah, the thing that's most helpful is when people are as patient as we are. So it's true. I like the way you present that, Jane, is it's a puzzle. And I can tell you that since 2004, we've never turned anybody away. We haven't had somebody that we can't serve. And so sometimes it's a relatively quick and easy to figure out the transfer or the way that we're going to make this thing happen. For other people, there might be a little bit of trial and error. What we'll do is we'll offer like, oh, other people have transferred into a kayak this way, and this has worked for them. But we want to make sure the person coming, they know their body and their limits and their strengths. So we view ourselves as partners in that work, where we have a lot of experience and skill and can offer things, but we always work with the individual coming. And there's a certain vulnerability, I think, for the person coming who has a condition, a disabling condition, to trust us with that and to share that information of like, yeah, my knee's not going to bend to 90 degrees. My knee's going to bend to 60 degrees. What are we going to do about this? And then we sort of approach that together as something that we can work on together to address. And people who can come with the space, especially the first couple of times, the sort of mental space to say, maybe today I learned how to get in the kayak, or I learned how to get on this bike and how to use it, and next time I'll take a ride. Then we can kind of really work together to figure it out. And we all see the possibility. We all sort of see in front of us, how can we help somebody participate in this activity? We don't see, we're aware of the limitations, and then we will do anything we can to come up with the workaround.
Diane asks, what's the fee range for senior activities like kayaking, paddleboarding?
The snowshoeing programs we do on a sliding scale. We ask for, those are by donation, $5 to $20. The kayaking is, last summer it was $20. Some people pay that and donate more. Other people need a scholarship and they just talk to us. We don't have a formal application for that, but we work with people. But that's sort of the range that one could expect for senior activities, in the $5 to $20 range.
Does AOA own and store, from Catherine Baker, does AOA own and store all the equipment, or is it rented or owned by granting organizations?
It's a mix. AOA, we own a lot of equipment, and we can run most of our programs fully independently. We also partner very closely with the state park system, which owns quite a bit of equipment. So like this, we own 3 kick sleds, the state parks own 6. So if we're running a bigger program, we'll use some of theirs. The state park system owns quite a few of the adaptive bikes. So they really, we especially love to work together on cycling programs because we can offer quite a few more bikes. Kayaking, we do that totally on our own. So it's sort of a mix. And as we go through, one of our goals each year is to acquire more and more equipment so that we can run programs fully on our own, but we always partner with the state parks when we can to serve more people.
Another question from Naomi is, what's the average number that participate in activities like skiing or kayaking? And what's the proportion of seniors?
We have programs specifically for seniors. And in those programs, our groups are typically around 10 or so. Our other programs for people with disabilities, those, we have seniors who have disabling conditions. So we'll have seniors with Parkinson's and stroke survivors, or they'll come to those programs as well. And they're probably 10%-ish of those programs. And then our other programs that are just for seniors are seniors.
And Pat Aslan asked, do you cap the number of participants in a specific program?
We do. Sometimes it's limited by equipment. So kayaking, we have 10 kayaks available for participants. So then it's capped there. Snowshoeing, we have a little more flexibility, especially if we're hiking or snowshoeing or people are bringing their own. Sometimes our caps are more based on the need of the participants who are coming. If we know that we're going to have a small group that needs to go and one slower group, we'll just sort of mind our signups to make sure that we have enough coverage based on the need. So we don't always do hard ratios because what we're working with isn't necessarily, not everybody is the same for the amount of staff time they'll need. And then cycling, similarly, we'll cap that based really on limitations of how many available cycles there are.
Nina Kleinberg, our exceptional tech person, asks, can you talk about AOA and how it has changed both people's attitudes toward the disabled and how the disabled think about themselves? Also, I have to scroll down. Oops. Also, have you had any kind of input from national leadership in the disabilities field?
That actually was the ADA, not AOA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me make sure I'm understanding the question
sorry.
correctly then, because I was hearing.
You want me to
different.
read that part again?
Would you mind? Thank you.
Talk about the ADA and how it's changed both people's attitudes toward the disabled and how the disabled think about themselves.
That, I have to admit, so I'm 43. And so when I was younger and in school, we didn't have inclusion, that was pre-ADA, but my adult life, the ADA has been here and it's been pushing for inclusion. So I've got that somewhat, that perspective, whereas an adult, the ADA has been here. But what I see over and over again is more growth. And so, when I first started this work, in 2004, it was really pretty groundbreaking that people who have disabilities were being welcomed into the outdoors or, into these kinds of programs. But I think as time has gone on and people who have disabilities have both gained access and then gained the political power to demand access to places, some of that perception has changed a little bit, where I think there's more of an attitudinal perception that, of course, people who have disabilities are included in these things. And I really see that with my children. They're 10 and 6, and they've never known anything else. So they kind of can't even believe that there was a time that other students with disabilities wouldn't have been welcomed into their class. Or, sometimes still my kids are pretty perceptive because of coming to programs with me. They'll see a restaurant with steps and they're like, why are there steps to get into this restaurant? A wheelchair user can't get here. So, I think over time we've seen these shifts, but it's definitely a longer, slower process. And if I can put my city council hat on for a second, there's a movement afoot to build a universally accessible hiking trail, a wheelchair accessible trail. There will be funding for one at the Pine Grove Golf Course. But that's definitely been a perception and an attitude shift of people who use wheelchairs don't need just sidewalks and bike paths, but soft surface accessible trails that are out in the woods. And that's something that people are still learning. So I don't know if I've really answered your question, but I definitely am seeing huge shifts. It's just hard to sort of name exactly what they are, but over time. And as for leadership of national disability organizations, we tend to be fairly state focused. So we work, the Universal Access Program with the state. We've done quite a bit of work with them and their leadership around disability. We've had some connections with other disability leaders, but not on the national level.
One would think they would be asking you some questions or asking for your advice and giving you some credibility. But Sarah Lennox has a question. What's the history of AOA in Northampton? Who founded it? And did that person learn their skills from a similar kind of organization elsewhere? What step did you go through to get it established here? And do you have any plans for expansion?
So All Out Adventures was founded in 2001. And so the local names people may know are Philippe Golaski, who lives in Florence. He's a bridge player. So if you've ever played bridge, you may have come across Philippe. He had polio as a child, and remembers very well the sort of pain of being excluded from, he was not allowed to participate in physical education classes at school, and was segregated. So Philippe, and then Tom McCarthy, who lives in Conway. Tom's also a polio survivor, and Tom is the director of the Department of Conservation and Recreation's Universal Access Program. So there's Tom and Philippe, and then they partnered with two students from the Greenfield Community College Outdoor Leadership Program, Elizabeth Dunaway, who lives in Northampton, and Christy McKaylick, who has moved out to Eastern Mass. And the four of them got together, and that's who started All Out Adventures. And after a couple of years, Tom McCarthy needed to step away because of the conflict of interest, because the state hires us to run programs. And so he stepped away from All Out Adventures. Philippe served as the president of our board just until last year, and he's still on our board, and just one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. So if you ever get a chance to know Philippe or haven't met him yet, I hope you do, because he's heavily involved. And anytime AOA has needed something, Philippe has been there from the very beginning for us. And then Elizabeth stepped away as the executive director in 2007 when she had her children, and that's when I came in. And it used to be, All Out Adventures started actually over in East Hampton. We were on the third floor of the Eastworks building. And then our rent got raised, and we moved to a building that's since been demolished on Route 10. And then we moved to State Street. And just last year, our landlord needed to move his office into where we had been. And so then serendipitously, we found a really amazing location down on Pleasant Street. So we've hopped around a little bit.
Lynn Shapiro asks, is the kayaking program limited to one area because of equipment storage or other logistical issues? Have you considered going elsewhere as well?
Our senior kayaking programs we run at the Connecticut River Greenway Park. We have a really close partnership with Northampton Community Rowing, which has a 99-year lease with the city to manage that park. And so there we do store our kayaks, and we just have a great setup. And so we run our senior kayaking programs there. Our programs for the state, for the Universal Access Program, those we run out at the DAR in Goshen, out at Lake Cochituate and Natick, Lake Quinsigamond and Worcester, sometimes down in Douglas. And at those programs, the state actually stores boats. So our staff will drive out in a van, but then there's a container or a trailer with kayaks and gear there at the park for us. So we kind of plant it around in different places to be able to offer some variety and location.
And then finally, a question from me, who's the youngest person you've ever had come to one of your adventures, and who's the oldest, or what's the age of those two, not who they are? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. The very youngest, oh gosh, least toddler, maybe younger. We've had little ones 2 years ago, just 2020, right, pre-COVID. But you know, that January, February, I remember running a program out in Brockton, a skating program, and there was a father there with he had cerebral palsy. He used a sled skate, but his toddler child was riding around on his lap, and we've had toddlers in kayaks and in bike trailers. So that's not uncommon. And then our oldest, she was 99 years old. And I remember cycling with her. I've got an old photo, if I dig through my files, on her, Jeanette Glear, on her 99th birthday. We rode across the rail trail bridge over the Connecticut River, and she was talking about her memories and history. And what was especially touching about her was that her grandson had autism. And so she came to our programs as a senior, and he came with his disability. And so once again, there they were participating together, and her other grandson who did not have a disability would bring his brother. And so it was a family affair, and they would come to different programs, and they were just amazing. So so far 99 is our oldest.
Well, someone here maybe will try to beat that, but I'm not sure.
Love it.
Well, we are out of questions, and the timing is perfect because we're hitting the 4 o'clock mark. I want to thank you so much from all of us, because this is just an inspiring conversation and great to hear all about it, All Out Adventures. Thanks so much. We can do our clapping.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And remember, join Northampton Neighbors. So if you go to Northampton Neighbors, info at Northampton Neighbors or northamptonneighbors.org, you will find how to donate, and we'd appreciate it. But thank you all. Oh, I forgot to tell you who the next speakers are. My apologies, don't go away for a second. On January 2nd, 7th, January 7th, Mandy Carter is coming, and she's going to talk. Her title is The Power of One, Importance of Allies in the Movement for Social and Racial Justice. And on January 28th, it's Marcia Hanner, and it's a tour of the solar system. And both are supposed to be spectacular speakers, just as Karen is. All of our speakers are amazing. So those are the next two, and we have a spring lineup, but we'll firm it up as we go. Now, I really think I can end. So thank you very much, Karen. Thank you all for coming.